One is Jenna from Jenna Marshall Photography. I'm just going to do a quick 5-minute edit of a photo I took of my son. We went for a very cold walk the other evening. I thought I'd show you how I edited it. Okay, so I used my Nikon D750 with my Sigma Art 35mm prime lens. I had my aperture set to 2. I had my shutter speed set to 250. My ISO was 640. I also had my Kelvin on 8400. I always set white balance by Kelvin. Okay, as you can see, it's underexposed. I always underexpose them, especially if the sky is involved. I don't like losing the clouds and it being overblown. It's much easier to bring this back than it is to bring blown highlights. So, obviously heat is too dark, so I'm going to up the exposure. About that. Okay, now you can see I've lost the sky, and I'm going to bring that back in a minute. But to adjust the colours, I am going to use one of my presets. Now I've got hundreds of presets over the years, and I have my favourites. My favourite at the moment is Wanderlust by Embrace. For this image, it's a cold image. I want it to look cold. I'm going to use number 12. And you can just see what it does to the colours. I mean, the shadows are a little bit too much for my taste, so I'm going to up the shadows just a bit. I prefer it like that. And it also, all these presets add grain, and I don't like grain. I do sometimes, but I don't want it on this image, so I'm going to take that off. I'm also going to do the lens correction to tone those edges down. Okay, we've lost a bit of the green, so I'm just going to, again, add a little bit more back in. And maybe change the tone of it. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So now I need to bring the sky back, so I'm going to use a gradient. I'm going to drag that down. And I'm going to turn the exposure down. Probably, yeah, about 2.5. And then I'm going to turn the highlights down as well. And then, I mean, it's looking a little bit grey. I want to add a bit of colour to it, so I'm just going to turn this down, add some blue, and add a little bit of magenta to make it more of a purpley sort of sky. And that way the purple sort of goes with the grass and just keeps it looking nice and nice, cool image. Wintry image, which is exactly what that walk was. It's freezing. Okay, so that is what I would do in Lightroom. I always shoot my images in RAW, so now I am going to export it as a PSD so that I can open it up in Photoshop. I don't really think there's much for me to do in Photoshop. I'll check the levels. So I'm going to export that and wait for it to load in the other file. Okay, so my first thing that I would do is I would click the levels. I would go to this, the highlights arrow, and I would hold the Alt key down and I will drag it down and it will show me where my highlights have blown, where you've gone too far. So drag it to where it doesn't, no, it's pretty perfect, I didn't need to add it, but you can do that to any image and it will just brighten the colour slightly and lighten it up, and it just adds a bit of a pop to the image, but this one was already on the right levels already, so I'm happy with that. Sometimes I might darken and bring the trees in a little bit more, but I mean, it was a misty walk and I don't really want to lose that, so I'm gonna keep it as it is. I don't want to over edit it really. Yeah, so that's the before and that's the after. Thank you for watching.